My husband and I had been acquainted since our high school days. Coming from a modest background, I grew up in a humble family, while he came from a privileged upbringing. Jaeger, with his impeccable style, daring actions, sharp intellect, and athletic physique, stood out among all the other guys, capturing the attention not only of girls at our school, but also of numerous young women in our town. Despite the abundance of female admirers surrounding him, it was astonishing when he asked me out on a date, arousing envy among many. I felt a mix of pleasure and apprehension because I was dedicated to my studies, preparing to pursue a degree in Chinese alternative medicine at our local medical university. Due to my academic ambitions and the belief that Jaeger sought me out merely as another conquest, I refrained from engaging in serious relationships throughout high school. Additionally, I presumed that he viewed me as a form of entertainment, considering the attention he received from others. However, I was not entirely isolated from the world around me. Genetics had blessed me. Taking after my expressive and vibrant mother and grandmother, I possessed their charming qualities. Jaeger displayed tact and respect toward me, never allowing rudeness to taint our interactions. He never ceased to surprise me with his thoughtfulness and gestures of affection, such as presenting me with flowers. Even the fact that I hailed from a humble background, raised by my mother on her modest teacher's salary in a one-room apartment, didn't faze him. Jaeger explicitly expressed his appreciation for my serious outlook on life, my pride, and my commitment to traditional moral values. After completing high school, I achieved my goal and secured a place in the first year of our university's medical program, specializing in Chinese alternative medicine. Meanwhile, Jaeger pursued a degree in international relations. Surprisingly, our relationship endured, even though it lacked the passionate fervor depicted in romantic films. Perhaps it was due to my innate nature as a composed Nordic girl, not easily swayed by fiery emotions. I tended to reason with my mind, rather than let my heart guide me, and so 2 years elapsed. During this time, Jaeger's father ascended to the position of deputy head in our city's administration. His mother had established a thriving business empire comprising a chain of stores spread throughout the city, beauty salons, and even a representative office for renowned online marketplaces. Meanwhile, I myself had engaged in various lucrative endeavors that I never delved into deeply, yet my financial situation remained parallel to my mother's. In my spare time, I took up part-time tutoring while my mother toiled tirelessly. Although Jaeger attempted to offer me financial assistance, I refused to accept his money, preferring not to feel indebted to him. My parents harbored aspirations of finding a suitable bride for Jaeger within their social circle. However, fate intervened when he fell head over heels in love with me. His infatuation was met with vehement opposition from my parents, and the ordeal took a toll on him to the extent that he resorted to swallowing pills in a desperate act. Fortunately, he survived, for which I was immensely grateful. Strangely enough, after this incident, my parents relented and no longer prohibited Jaeger from seeing me, but his mother's animosity towards me became overtly evident. Then, out of the blue, Jaeger surprised me with a sudden marriage proposal. We had been dating for quite some time, and he believed it was the appropriate moment to elevate our relationship to the next level. He perceived me as a suitable wife and a loving mother, and he appreciated the fact that I did not depend on him financially like his previous girlfriends, whom he referred to as beautiful wrappers with rotten stuffing. Needless to say, Jaeger's mother vehemently opposed our impending nuptials, frequently berating her son and warning him that he would ruin his future by marrying me. On one occasion, she even attempted to bribe me into abandoning Jaeger, but his father, Sergey, held a different opinion. Sergey welcomed our union, recognizing that with me, Jaeger would have a dependable partner and genuine affection. Despite the strained relations with Jaeger's family, I acquiesced and agreed to marry him. I cannot claim to have been madly in love with him, as I had once dreamed of during my youthful years while watching romantic movies. Such passionate love did not exist between us. Rather, our bond was one of respect and a sense of security. However, I must confess that I had another motive for proceeding with the wedding. I yearned to improve the financial circumstances of my mother and myself, granting her a tranquil and stable life in her old age while freeing ourselves from the burden of debt. Yegor, recognizing our predicament, displayed no greed and empathized with our situation. Finally, we set a date for the wedding, forging ahead despite the strained ties with Yegor's family. You know, the media couldn't help but notice the wedding of the son of a prominent official, even though our city is tight-knit and everyone knows each other. Many journalists focused their attention on me, the groom, questioning my suitability for the role. While no one insulted me directly, there was a constant buzz about how I had seemingly lucked out in life. This topic was speculated upon at every turn. As the wedding approached, the overwhelming public attention pushed me to the brink of hysteria, and I began contemplating abandoning everything. However, I must give credit to Yegor and his father, as they shielded me from the brunt of the media's scrutiny. After the wedding, we had plans to move to the capital, but Yegor's parents insisted that we reside nearby. As a wedding gift, they provided us with a small house adjacent to theirs. Naturally, this was not what I had envisioned for our start as a couple. Yegor and I desired to embark on an independent life. He wanted to transfer to MGIMO in the capital and establish his own knit business, while I longed to distance myself from his mother, who consistently aimed to demean and insult me. However, due to the power and influence of Yegor's parents, our aspirations were thwarted. My father-in-law, Sergey, remained supportive and treated me with kindness. He often compared me to his first love, who coincidentally shared my name, Anastasia. Following the wedding, he maintained a respectful distance from our family, interacting politely and courteously. He even affectionately referred to me as Nastenka, which infuriated my mother-in-law. However, she concealed her true feelings in front of her husband, maintaining an amicable facade. It was only when we were alone that she unleashed her verbal attacks, hurling insults at me and my entire family. My mother empathized with my situation, deeply saddened by my mother-in-law's animosity, but there was little I could do to change the circumstances. Yes, we were not on the same social level, being ordinary, less affluent individuals. However, we never reveled in their misfortunes. Eventually, I grew weary of it all and urged Yegor to approach his parents and request financial assistance to start a new life in the capital. Yegor himself desired to distance himself from his parents, but he was accustomed to a life of luxury and was unwilling to leave with empty pockets. For some reason, Yegor believed it would be easier for him to broach the topic with his mother, so he went to her, only to face immediate rejection. His mother-in-law asserted, in all seriousness, that she would disinherit him if he dared to leave. Yegor returned home disheartened and began convincing me that staying put was the right choice. That night marked the first occasion when genuine anger towards my husband surged within me, initiating our first ever conflict. Frustrated with Yegor's inability to communicate effectively with his parents, I made a decision. I would take matters into my own hands. The following day, I ventured to my father-in-law's office, Sergey, during the bustling hours. Determined to fight for my own happiness and that of my family, I understood that visiting my in-laws' house would only expose me to the relentless belittlement and emotional distress inflicted by my hysterical mother-in-law. Sergey received my unexpected visit with surprise, yet a tinge of satisfaction. He promptly summoned his secretary, rescheduled appointments and negotiations, assuring me that he would make time for my concerns. Offering me tea and sweets, he attentively prepared to lend an ear. Evidently, the distress was etched across my face, prompting me to immediately open up and disclose the truth to my father-in-law, conveying the extent of his wife's constant insults and animosity towards me. I'd also made a point to mention Yeager's fervent desire to break free from the confines of his parents' nest and overprotective care. Sergey Evgenievich listened intently, refraining from interruptions, and displayed agreement with my grievances. As our conversation drew to a close, I implored him to assist me in any way possible, urging him to help me depart from this hostile environment with my husband as soon as feasible. Upon hearing this plea, my father-in-law looked at me, intrigued and wearing a sly grin. "Are you truly willing to do anything?" he asked. Momentarily hesitant, I had reached my breaking point and affirmed, "Yes, anything. I have no other choice. I beg for your assistance." At that moment, Sergey Evgenievich stood up from his chair, approached the door, and locked it. He leisurely poured himself a drink and declared, "Well, if you are truly prepared to do anything, then become my mistress. Assume your duties right away." He insinuated that my love for Yeager was lacking and that I remained with him solely for financial security, asserting that he held no remorse towards his not-so-real son, as Yeager, too, loved him merely for his wealth. It all revolved around money, my dear. That was the foundation of this arrangement. Unfortunately, he was correct. While I did have feelings for Yeager, our relationship had predominantly been fueled by the allure of a wealthy lifestyle. I realized that I had used him as an escape from the mundane existence of poverty. I reluctantly agreed to Sergey Evgenievich's proposal, hating myself for what I was about to do. In order to secure my family's independence, I found myself surrendering to him right there on the desk. Strangely, amidst the desperation, I noticed a fleeting absence of shame, even finding some pleasure in this forbidden intimacy. Sergey Evgenievich turned out to be an experienced and discreet man, and that night on the table, I experienced a level of pleasure I had never known before. My father-in-law seemed satisfied with our arrangement. He urged me to keep our secret and mentioned plans to start preparing for our move. He promised occasional visits, a couple of times a month. Igor, unaware of the true cost of my freedom, remained oblivious. I hoped it would stay that way. Eventually, we relocated to the capital, where Igor pursued his studies and business. Meanwhile, in secret, I continued my clandestine relationship with my own father-in-law. But such a deceitful situation couldn't last forever. My mother-in-law began to suspect something. She grew suspicious of Sergey's frequent visits and decided to investigate. Hiring a detective, she uncovered our affair. Strangely, after enduring so much humiliation from her, I found satisfaction in asserting my dominance over this vulnerable woman. When she caused a scene in the hotel lobby, where her husband had brought me, I remained composed and even smiled at her outburst. That same day, Igor and I ended our relationship, and within a week, we were legally separated. It seemed that Igor's mother had done her utmost to ensure our swift separation. Sergey Evgenievich also divorced his wife, resulting in a highly publicized and acrimonious split. She fought for a substantial share of their assets, but my father-in-law managed to retain his position and wealth. Naturally, my ex-father-in-law sought to establish a connection with me after the divorce, but I had no desire to see him again. There was no need for it. I was simply relieved to finally cut ties with that family, and had managed to accumulate a considerable sum of money in my bank account. Returning to the capital, I brought my mother to live with me. However, my sense of unease grew as I began experiencing troubling health issues. My fears were confirmed when a pregnancy test revealed 2 clear stripes, signaling the unexpected news of my pregnancy. Now, I found myself in a state of newfound freedom, able to live life on my own terms. Although I didn't experience remorse, a sense of guilt lingered in front of Yeager due to my betrayal. Nevertheless, I fought for the freedom of our family, even if it meant making difficult choices without his input. There is no excuse for my actions, but I hold on to hope that one day Yeager will understand and forgive me. especially considering that I carried either his brother or his son within me. In any case, after consulting with my mother, we made the decision to keep the child. Time passed, and now my son Artyom is 3 years old. He possesses a remarkable and unconventional personality, already displaying impressive skills in counting money. He even promised to buy me the biggest house when he grows up. On this particular day, Artyom and I visited a famous coffee and bakery in Moscow. It had become our routine to indulge in their delectable croissants, and as usual, we ordered our favorite cappuccinos. Settling down at our cherished corner table, my son began sharing something with me when suddenly I heard a painfully familiar voice from behind. "Anastasia, Nastenka, I'm back." Sergey Evgenevich, my former father-in-law, stood before me. I was taken aback, wondering why he was here in the capital. Sergey Evgenevich's gaze fixated on Artyom, who bore an uncanny resemblance to him. Judging by his astonished expression and incoherent muttering, I realized he had pieced everything together. As it turned out, 1.5 years had passed since Sergey's promotion, which led to his relocation to the capital. His ex-wife had received her share of the property in the divorce settlement and took his stepson Yegor with her, moving abroad for permanent residence. Sergey remained unmarried, but often thought of me. Coincidentally, he found himself in the same coffee shop, mistaking the adjacent front door for the restaurant where he had an appointment. It was then that he caught sight of me with my son. In response to his silent inquiry, I simply nodded my head and tears welled up in my eyes. From that day onward, we never parted ways, and soon we started living together. Eventually, we decided to get married. To solidify Sergey Evgenevich's paternity, we underwent a DNA test that provided irrefutable confirmation. Now, he dotes on Artyom without reservation. I found employment as a marketer in a company, and my mother pursued accounting and secured a job there as well. Artyom grew up and began attending school. Finally, our lives fell into place, and the stormy paths we once traversed led us to our long-awaited happiness. I ask that you refrain from passing judgment and instead support us with kind words. None of us know what the future holds, so I choose to live for today. I am grateful for the health and well-being of my family and the means to sustain ourselves. After enduring countless hardships, we have finally discovered our own version of contentment.